Student 101. Today's episode: cadences. Your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips.
It's important to learn this early on, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Cadences and their purpose and what we use them for. I guess at some point you guys are going to start to analyze music and forms and so forth.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. And it's a good way to kind of learn how to, what would you say, navigate your way through a piece of music? Or what's...
It's a good way to understand the divisions of the music and the divisions of the form. Mm-hmm. If someone tells me to listen to the form of a particular piece of music, like if I were in an oral skills class or a form and analysis class, then the first thing I would be listening for would be the cadences, because those delineate the ends of phrases, and the way they go together is how you're going to sort of come to understand how the form is built up. Okay. And what cadences are ending phrases is very, very important.
So once we can identify these different types of cadences, we can kind of identify also what's going on in the song or in the piece of music.
It definitely helps.
Okay, Matt, so what is a cadence?
You can think of a cadence as the harmonic goal of a particular chord progression. It is the place that harmonic progression is headed towards. You know, the piece as a whole, of course, is headed towards a final tonic, a final cadence that ends the piece. And every individual phrase and melody and chord progression within that piece is also headed towards its own sort of personal little goal, and you could think of that little goal as a cadence.
I recall us using an analogy or discussing an analogy where if you liken a piece of music to a paragraph or something like that, or a stanza or a poem,
right? Yeah.
Maybe the cadences could be kind of considered to be like the punctuations or the ending of certain ideas.
Good analogy. And some cadences are commas, and some are periods, and some are probably exclamation marks and
question marks.
Okay,
well let's go ahead and talk about the different types of cadences.
Right.
There's one that is considered, I think, the most powerful.
And that is the authentic cadence.
Should we just begin with that?
Yeah. Well, okay, so the authentic cadence is a dominant chord to a tonic chord, essentially. So we have, and I'm going to be in the key of D major here.
If you want to play along.
What's that? If you want to play along, I'm in the key of D major. But an authentic cadence is going to be... And that is a cadence that we consider to have a lot of strength. And by strength, I mean it sounds very, very final. If I play that in a little chord progression.
So those are 1.
1.
4.
This is going to be 1, 6, 5.
Oh. And there's a 5, definitely.
Yeah, and that's a cadence that has a great deal of strength. And what I mean by strength is it has this quality of resting. There's a quality of it being really strongly at rest. You feel like something is very, very significantly over. It's a period at the end of the sentence as opposed to a comma or something like that.
Yeah. So the important thing we're talking about here is the 5-1 resolution. Before we get into the specific types of authentic cadences.
Right, yeah, because there are subgenres of the authentic cadence.
But it's mainly about the 5-1 resolution. Mm-hmm. You're kind of waiting with bated breath at the 5 chord, what's going to happen, and you hear that 1 and it's like,
exactly.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Exactly. So it used to really kill music students when you would do something just demanding an authentic cadence, like something like what I just did, but
Why did you do that, Matt? Why did you do that? I wanted to hear that one chord.
You almost can't stand it, right? You want that chord to be there, and that's because it has such a strong pull, the authentic cadence, and has such a feeling of coming to rest. So there are two types of authentic cadence. The two types have everything to do with the note in the melody and what that particular note is doing. So the authentic cadence is the strongest type of cadence. The strongest type of authentic cadence itself is the perfect authentic cadence, and that is the one in which the melody approaches the tonic from the leading tone. So you have leading tone up to tonic in the melody. At the same time, you have 5/1 in the bass.
Yeah, okay. So it's very strong.
Right. So play some full chords here. If I was to do that in a nice little progression.
So there's the perfect authentic cadence. The most important thing being that the bass resolves from a 5/1.
Yeah.
And that the melody resolves from a 7/1.
Right. It's that in the outer voices.
Let's talk abbreviations real quick because we're not going to want to say perfect authentic cadence every time.
Right.
It's commonly known that you can call this a PAC.
A PAC.
A PAC, perfect authentic cadence.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the perfect authentic cadence, or PAC. Let's talk about the imperfect authentic cadence, or IAC.
Right, the IAC, the imperfect authentic cadence, is when the melody note is doing something other than that. It's actually anything that's a 5/1 that's not a perfect authentic cadence.
Okay.
But the imperfect authentic cadence, I'm going to have a melody note that's not going scale degree 7, scale degree 1. It's going to be doing something else. For example, and you notice that melody note is on our scale degree 3, is on our mi.
This note right here.
Yeah. And if you're not sure which kind of authentic cadence you're listening to, sing that melody note, sing the top note, and try to sing down the major scale.
Okay.
If you can't do that, then you're probably on tonic. So for example, if I were to I can go down it, but it doesn't feel very natural, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus
Dun, dun. Was that what it is? Right. So there was a imperfect because it didn't land on the 1 from
exactly.
the 7.
Exactly. Those are our two kinds of perfect authentic cadences, and an imperfect authentic cadence can land on just about anything. It can even be it can even land on 1 if it's not approaching it from that leading tone. So
Okay, so thus far we've discussed the authentic cadence and how they typically resolve from 5/1, and the difference being how they get there in the melody and the bass, determining the difference between whether it's a perfect or imperfect authentic cadence.
correct.
Let's talk about some different types of cadences that are not authentic.
Indeed. So for example, the other most common one is the half cadence.
Okay?
And the half cadence is a cadence that lands on any chord other than 1, really. But most typically, and the way we generally think about it, is any cadence that ends on a dominant chord, on a 5 chord.
That's that cliffhanger effect.
Right. So, for example, half cadence.
Yeah.
And notice it has much less strength than the authentic cadence did, because it doesn't feel as resolved. It doesn't feel like it's resting quite as much. And what I'm playing here is 1, 2/6, and then just 5.
Yeah. It definitely wants to go somewhere.
Yeah, it definitely wants to go somewhere. It can be the end of a phrase, but it's usually it's definitely not typically the end of a whole piece. And usually there's something coming up right after it because it doesn't have a whole lot of rest to it.
Okay. Well, that's a good little nugget too, because for a while, for the longest time, I guess my recollection was the half cadence was typically a 5 chord, but it's cool to know that it doesn't necessarily have to be ending on the 5 chord. It can be other less resolving chords.
Yeah, there are actually lots of half cadences on 5 of 5s. Because that sort of inspires a modulation to 5.
Wouldn't that be a quarter cadence? Oh.
Oh.
Maybe not. Maybe so, maybe not. Not officially, anyways.
Not officially.
In my little mind, it is. Okay, but let's move on, man. I think we covered that pretty good.
Indeed.
So let's talk about my personal favorite.
The deceptive cadence?
You know me well.
The deceptive cadence is usually 5 to 6. They call it deceptive because you think you're going to go to 1. So if I play, I don't know. Let's just do something different for a little while. So if we play 1, 2, 6, and then like a good cadential 6/4. But instead of going back to 1, we go to the scale degree 6, which is. And the main function of this is basically to extend the chord progression. Because once you're here, you're going to have to sort of go around the circle of fifths again. To get back to 1. So whenever you do that deceptive cadence, you've sort of extended your chord progression and you're going to make a longer thing.
It's kind of like you think the story's over.
Yeah.
But there's more to be told.
But it's not. Yeah.
So you just hang out in the meantime. We'll get back to this.
Yeah. Hence the term deceptive. It's deceiving you. You think you're going back to 1. You're going, okay. 1, 4, and then 5. But hold on. Yeah.
So there's your deceptive cadence. Now, does it ever end on 2s or 4s, or I guess that would be something different, wouldn't it?
If it ended on 2, that would be more of a half cadence kind of thing.
Okay, right, because it's close to the 5 chord.
Yeah, but if it ends, it can end on 4. The idea is that it has to end on a chord that has 1 in the melody, and that has 1 as a chord tone in that chord, rather.
Okay.
Because that's why it always goes to 6, because 6 has scale degree 1 as a chord tone, and that's what is so great about the deceptive thing. It still sort of resolves in a way the way you think, and it still makes harmonic sense, but it doesn't do what you want to. It can also resolve to 4. This is less common, but you can go 1, 2, 6, 5, 4.
Nice, man. I really dig that. That's got some character to it. I don't do a lot of that. I'm gonna start messing around with some of those.
Yeah, sort of emotional in a ways, And it would have the same harmonic effect. Once you're into 4, you've also extended the harmonic progression, because then you're going to have to go to 5 or a cadential 6/4 or something like that.
What was that melody doing in your example just then? Okay. Okay.
And you can almost hear it wanting to go back to.
Almost kind of flips your sense of where you are in the circle of fifths.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore deceiving you in some way.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
Okay. Well, tell me about the Phrygian half cadence.
The Phrygian half cadence, named so for the fact that it was something really easy to do in the Phrygian mode, still is something really easy to do in a Phrygian mode, is a minor key half cadence. And the thing about it is the bass note, which is going from the lowered sixth scale degree in a minor scale.
So we're in D minor.
So we're in D minor, and this is B flat, and moving that down to A. What typically happens is you're coming at the 5 from a 4/6 in a minor key, so you have this sort of and it's the bass note here that makes that a Phrygian half cadence. You can play that in a lower octave to get a little more separation too.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I heard what that bass was doing. It was really kind of cool. So let's talk about what's happening one more time. So the bass in that case, and the chords we were playing were 1.
Yes, 1.
The bass is going from 1.
Yeah. To 4/6.
So that's involving a flat scale degree 6.
Right. And that flat scale degree 6 goes down a half step to scale degree 5. Exactly.
Okay.
It's that lay sol motion that makes it a Phrygian half cadence.
Yeah, and those don't come up a lot or I guess we don't discuss those a lot right where we are. Or we do. I mean, I don't remember.
It's kind of one of those things that's just mentioned in passing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a hard concept to grasp. They used to be really popular.
But it only happens in a minor key.
Pretty much only happens in a minor key.
So that's one thing to listen for.
Yeah, you might find them in some romantic compositions with modal mixture, where they've actually used scale degree flat 6 from a major key because they start doing those kinds of things.
And there's something to, if you're trying to identify if there's something in that flavor that's distinctly different than everything we've discussed so far, I believe.
Yeah, and it's that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of heavy metal or something.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Well, great, man. So there's only one more I have in my notes right here, and that would be the plagal cadence.
Plagal cadence. This is typically considered the amen cadence. Consider that because it is, sort of what choirs sing when they sing amen, and it is just a 1, 4, 1. It is kind of coda-like in that it's not really the end of a progression, but it usually comes after the end of a progression. What you will get will be something like. Hold on, I'm trying to be crafty here now.
Okay, so you went through a chord progression, you landed at 1, and we were like,
Yeah.
okay, that's the end of the thing. And then you're like, wait a minute, I want to say that one more time.
Yes,
Only a little bit different.
only a little bit different. Yeah.
And that's where you got that 4 resolving to 1.
Right, yeah, and it's because the 4 chord has scale degree 1 as a chord tone. And so you can just sort of ride the melody. You can sort of just think about after a perfect authentic cadence or something. And it can just ride that 1.
Okay, so there's the plagal cadence, and now that's basically our discussion on cadences, but let's do a quick review just to kind of
All right,
give
yep.
people an idea. So far we've determined that there are 6 main types of cadences: perfect authentic cadence, the imperfect authentic cadence, the half cadence, deceptive cadence, the Phrygian half cadence, and the plagal cadence.
All right.
So real quick, the authentic cadence.
Authentic cadence, there are 2 types. There's a perfect authentic cadence when you have scale degree 7 to scale degree 1 in the melody. So we'll have some nice little thing like.
Very resolute. And then slightly less resolute, we have the imperfect authentic cadence.
The imperfect authentic cadence is going to have some note other than the tonic in the melody. So more like.
Okay. And hats off to Matt for coming up with these on the fly because I kind of took him off guard.
I'm doing my best.
Possible copyright issues. Would you just come up with some of these chord progressions on your own? And he's doing a fine job.
I make a disclaimer. I don't care if I'm playing parallel fifths. You can just suck it.
Because that's a big deal. We know. Okay, so let's talk about the half cadence.
So half cadence ends on the dominant chord. It's kind of like a comma. So you'll have something that sort of pauses, such as...
Very good. And though we also discussed that while typically it tends to land on 5, it can also land on other chords.
It can, yeah, land on other chords. Although we normally associate a half cadence with a 5, but you see other chords.
Especially listening early on, I assume we'll be listening more for 5s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then that brings us to the deceptive cadence.
Right, the deceptive cadence goes from 5 to some chord that has scale degree 1 as a chord tone, but not the tonic. Most typically, it is to scale degree 6. And what you will have is... And instead of going back to 1 like you might suspect, we will go... And it has the effect of prolonging that chord progression, because now I'm going to have to go. And get back to tonic somehow.
Okay. So then we have the ever interesting Phrygian half cadence.
The ever interesting Phrygian half cadence. This is a minor scale half cadence that has a sort of lower scale degree 6 to scale degree 5 in the bass. So it has something like Phrygian half cadence.
Very cool. Very cool. And the main thing to listen for in that is, like you're saying, the bass.
Yeah, the in the bass.
6 wanting to go to that 5. And
Right.
thereby doing so. Okay. And then finally the plagal cadence.
And then the plagal cadence is just our typical amen cadence. 1, 4, 1.
So if you know that amen sound, or the one we're referring to, you can't miss the plagal cadence.
Not really.
I don't think.
No.
That was one of the easier ones for me to be able to identify
Absolutely.
early on. Well, great, man. Well, I think that's all we can possibly say on cadences. And we probably drew this out a little longer than we needed to, but more information is always better, I think.
More information is always good. And, these things are important. When you start talking about form, it's being able to understand the cadences that's going to help you understand the form.
Kind of the building blocks of the
Exactly.
of the form.
Exactly.
Understanding the form. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you soon.
So what cadence are we using now? How about on our opening track? Write us and let us know at info@musicstudent101.com.